With 2021 finally here, we should be getting more information on the upcoming Sword Art Online progressive movie. So today, I wanted to talk about why I believe you should be excited for this version of the original story. I know opinion on SAO is very much split in the community, but that's exactly why I'm making this video, as I believe this new installment may interest even those who dropped off the show a long time ago. Spoilers for the whole anime series of SAO, but I won't be getting into anything major from the light novels. With that out of the way, without further ado, let's get into it. First off, what even is progressive? An often brought up criticism for SAO is the fact that they absolutely blazed through the Aincrad arc. The actual Sword Art Online part of the anime is a mere 14 episodes. This is exactly what this version of the story aims to fix. We will have a much more in-depth floor-by-floor story which will explain much of what seemed to come out of the blue in the original. As you might expect, this will take a lot longer than 14 episodes, with the first movie seemingly covering at most the first 2 floors. We should see a lot more stuff like the Excalibur arc in Season 2 of SAO, where the characters are just doing some random quests in the world, as you would in an actual MMORPG. And honestly, I think it was a pretty good mini-story. We should also see how many of the frontline guilds are first established, so we'll get more time with the Knights of the Blood Oath, the Laughing Coffin, and other prominent guilds. Another thing we'll be seeing a lot more of are floor bosses. For a series with 100 of them, you'd expect that we would have seen a bunch already, but we actually only saw a few in the original. They did allude to some being much harder than others and wiping out quite a large part of the raid team, so seeing those in future installments should also be pretty interesting. This is another often brought up criticism, but fret not, because Asuna being the front of the cover isn't just a marketing stunt. The progressive version of the story will have a much larger focus on her story than it did in the anime. What's more is that with this sort of storytelling, we won't see the massive power jumps we saw in the original, so their power progression should also feel a lot more natural. Without spoiling anything, they did do a lot of off-screen XP and item grinding, which kind of explains why they became the most powerful players. And if you want to know more about power progression and power creep, why not check out the mini-series we did right here on the channel, links in the description and in the card. I expect the first movie to focus a lot on Asuna's launch experience, and then slowly start to introduce Kirito, similar to how it happened with Asuna in the original, since we already know most of what happened to him in the first couple of days. On the note of less Kirito overall, I'd also expect them to flesh out some of the other main characters, like Argo, his info broker who didn't get much attention in the anime, as well as Klein and Aegil in the first movie. Characters like Silica and Sachi will come much later, so I don't think we'll get to see them at all in this one. Overall, expect less of Kirito and for him to become his Jesus-kun self much slower. Honestly, this is the biggest factor for me. The original Aincrad arc with the stunning visuals of Alicization is already something that I'd pay good money to see, but the sound design has also become so much better. And since they're going with the movie format, I wouldn't be surprised if they up the production budget even more, because let's be honest, they know that this movie will make absolute bank. If you'll allow me, I just want to nerd out over the sound design of the latest anime arc real quick. The way they did combat and Alicization just feels so much weightier. In the original, many of the fighting sounds seem too sharp in my opinion. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but just look at these examples. I think that giant sword should sound much bulkier, and then compare that to the sounds we saw in Alicization. Continuing on from this, sword skills should also sound more impactful than the simple charging up they did in the original. The sacred weapon arts in Alicization were much more elaborate, and I wouldn't be surprised if they use some of that flair for progressive as well. This combined with the much better animation quality should make this refreshed version an absolute joy to watch. This is a point I haven't really brought up yet, but they may just decide to change up the story. A lot of people have already brought up the question, why would they even bother watching it all the way through again? But who said that it has to be canon? Personally, I wouldn't be against some story remixes or even larger changes if it made for a better story. The original anime is still there, so if you don't like what this updated version is doing, you can just consider that to be the definitive version. But even if they don't decide to change the main story beats, they still have plenty of wiggle room, as we have so much missing context that they can essentially mold the story however they want. While I would have preferred if they went with the regular anime format, I'm still incredibly excited to see what they give us with this first movie. The only thing that has me worried with this approach is that for better or worse, it will be years before we see anything from higher floors. Things like the duel with Heathcliff, Starbush Stream, and a bunch of other major things from the original all happen at much higher floors. Even a bunch of the major characters are only introduced later into Aincrad. On the other hand, this does give them the opportunity to show us completely new things we haven't seen before, which is just another incentive to watch this new version of the story. And that's the video. This one's a bit of a shorter one, but one I really wanted to make. Personally, I think this version does have the potential to change a lot of people's minds about the series overall, as it addresses a lot of the criticism often brought up against it. If you dropped off somewhere along the SAO story, I'd really recommend checking out the Alicization arc. It's mostly independent of a lot of what happened in Season 2, so if you don't feel like watching the Gun-Gale or Mother Rosario arc, you really don't have to. In my opinion, the whole Alicization part is pretty much the best of SAO. But, other than that, I want to say thank you very much for watching, I hope you have a great day, and hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.